Welcome to Sovereign Mamas, the podcast sanctuary for visionary women who are building lives, businesses, and legacies in alignment with their feminine power. I'm your host, Julia Jerg, intuitive business coach, mama of two, and systems strategist for soul-led entrepreneurs. Here, we honor both your sacred role as a mama and your wild vision as a changemaker. Expect soul-aligned strategy, raw storytelling, behind the scenes, and powerful conversations that support you in scaling your business without sacrifice. If you're done choosing between success and sovereignty, you're home. Let's begin. Welcome, everyone, to the Sovereign Mamas podcast. This is your space to relax, grab a tea or coffee or whichever beverage you are preferring, and just carve out some time for yourself to tune into the many topics that are necessary to get you through a thriving motherhood and business mindset, spirituality, motherhood. We're talking all about this. And today it's going to be juicy because I think our guest today has a wonderful story where she is showing and leading a path that you may be on, you may have gone through, you probably will relate. So let's dive straight in. Welcome, Criss. I'm very, very happy to see you and have you on the show.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited to be here, not just with you, but with your audience and ready to dive into these topics and all these beautiful things that we're going to be talking about, and just collectively share our wisdom with your audience.
Perfect, perfect. So this is a podcast for mothers who also are on the journey of, they're leading their businesses, creating them. You have been like when I read your bio, it sounds really impressive, and it reminds me of mine when it seems like you followed a path, you hit some sort of rock bottom, not rock bottom, but you hit something and then you changed. Would you like to go and take us to the moment when you understood, I have to change something?
Yeah. Okay. I feel like throughout my journey, there's been several of those moments, but if I go back to that one moment where I absolutely had to make a decision of, do I want to continue living this path or shift? And it takes me back a few years where the best way to describe it is I lost my identity in motherhood.
Mm.
Uh, I have three children. So we got married and had our three children under 2 years. We had a
Ah,
boy, a son who wasn't even two yet when our twin daughters were born.
oh,
And
wow.
our daughters have a condition called 22q deletion syndrome.
Mm.
And so that genetic condition can manifest itself in over 180 different ways in the body. And for one, taking in all that information, knowing that both of our daughters, because they're identical twins, had this diagnosis and what that was going to mean for them, for us as parents, as a family, that in itself was a lot to take in. So that started our journey, my journey in motherhood,
Wow.
advocating for our daughters. They both had open heart surgeries. They had complex medical issues going on since birth. They're now 14 and doing incredible. But that has to do with all the advocacy and all the work that we did since they were very young. Now, during that time, as moms, we want the best for our children, as everybody, who is a loving mother always desires. So, advocating for them, caring for our three kids, trying to keep a marriage alive, having a full corporate career, being the breadwinner, doing all those things. I worked in human resources, which meant I was always holding space
Mm.
for people at work, holding space at home. And over time, I lost myself. Like I did not know who I was. Looking at myself in the mirror, it was an unrecognizable person that I did not like anymore. That was that first moment when I knew something had to shift because the way I was showing up at home with my spouse and with my children was not the loving way that I wanted to show up. Because my stress levels were so high, because I hadn't taken care of myself, I'd been living in survival mode for so long that I was just, I guess you could say, falling apart inside. And it was just gradually over time that when it reached that point, it was almost like a little explosion.
Oh, wow. Oh, yes. And so thank you for sharing this. This is obviously in, incredible journey put in a nutshell. And there's so many steps you've lived through. And what was it like when you then said, I mean, you shared it, your body then developed an autoimmune system disease, and then you were basically forced to stop and rethink. So how was that?
Yeah. So, when I had that first moment, that's when I reached out for support. And support for me was looked like working with coaches, life coaches. And that in itself really started to change my life because it was just shifting the mind, reprogramming the way I was thinking, the way I was interpreting all the situations that were happening in life. And that led me to become a certified coach as well. So I already had that knowledge. But then I hit 40 and this autoimmune condition just flared up or popped up, I should say, where I was breaking out in hives in my entire body. And it went on for months. And it was doctor after doctor after doctor. And they would all tell me the same thing. Everything looks great. All your labs look good. You're fine. You're never going to know what this is stemming from. So just take medication for the rest of your life and be happy. And so, because I had that advocacy, I was just so used to advocating for my daughters and not taking no for an answer that I then started doing that for myself. And I ultimately ended up going down holistic path, if you will. And it was in that moment, sitting in front of that practitioner and just kind of telling her my life story as well. She was the one that was able to tell me the root cause of this, which was living in survival mode. He said, Criss, you've been living in survival mode for over a decade, and this is how your body is getting your attention. Like, it's got to stop. And so we talked through that. And to me, that was like a big relief to hear that, as odd as it sounds, right? But it was because at that point, I was already a coach. I had already studied, I had already reprogrammed things. So I looked at her and I said, well, if I caused this problem, then I'm also going to fix it in record time. And so it did take a lot of work. It was a lot of uh, internal work and just mixed with, nutrition and different things that I had to put into place to get rid of the inflammation and a lot of things that were happening. Um, and that resulted in me just really healing myself, I would say with less than 6 months. And even that
Mm,
may sound like a long time frame, maybe not, maybe. But to me, it was so difficult because of the things that I had to do and implement. And that also resulted in me losing so much weight that I was at the weight that I was when I was in high school, which was almost 100 pounds. And that in itself turned into a whole other narrative in my head of looking at self in my mirror and not liking the person that I was looking because I felt like I was just, fading away. But again, I had to change the narrative of that. And I just told myself, this is temporary and I'm letting go and I'm shedding all the things that no longer serve me.
mhm,
And it's been a great journey since then. Like the autoimmune condition has not returned. And if I ever even begin to get somewhat of a flare up, I
mhm,
just know, like, wait, my body's trying to signal something to me. So I
mhm,
stop. I reflect at like, what do I have going on? And then I'm able to work through that. So it's almost like an internal barometer that's telling me, hey, pay attention. Because that's really what our body does, right? That's the way
Mm.
that it gets attention. Like, pay attention to me. I'm here. I have feelings. Give me some love.
Yeah, it's so good. It's like we have these, as mothers, we have these two factors. It's our bodies and it's our children's. And they are showing us a lot. They are showing us when to slow down, when something is wrong. They're leading and guiding us through life. And so in everything you can see a blessing, a moment for you to take away what have I learned? And it's amazing how you turn it around. And listening to what you just said, do you not feel that that's such a powerful tool to know that your mindset, you as the person, you're so capable of changing literally anything, right?
Yes, yes. And I wish more people realized that.
Mhm.
I wish more people understood that when your body enters a state of disease or any kind of condition, it's really stemming from everything you're carrying inside,
Mhm.
everything. And I know people feel like there's a bit of a stretch, and this comes because it's hereditary or this and that. But I truly believe, and this is my belief, right, that we're the creator of so many things. So if we create it, I created this disease for myself unconsciously, right? Because all these things happen unconsciously.
Yeah, for all the good
So,
reasons, right?
right,
Yeah.
good, wrong, or indifferent,
Mhm.
our body is getting our attention that way. So
Mhm.
to know that we also have the ability to make a change. Now, it's not going to work for everybody. I understand that because everybody's in a different space and there's different illnesses that, are just going to be different, right? Some are more aggressive, more severe than others. But if we can do our part early on
Mhm.
when we're feeling overwhelmed, when we're feeling stressed, when we're feeling anxious. That's our body speaking to us. But we have gotten so accustomed to think that that is just the way society is. That's just the way of living today that we
Mhm.
just dismiss it and we say it's normal. Everybody's going through this. Well, no, it is not normal. We've tried to normalize that, even
Mhm.
if the a large population of the world is suffering because of this,
Mhm.
we have the ability to fix it. Now, with that, I love that now we are teaching our children the power of healing
Mhm.
and how we can, work through our emotions to heal ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah, I I love that, and it's it's when I look back at my childhood, and I have my mother, I think she's the best example for what you just described. And when I saw her throughout my entire childhood suffering, going through one disease after another and after another, and just like you, most of the times the doctor said there's nothing wrong, you're fine. But she would go back and keep not feeling right. And I, as a child, was witnessing this, and also then as a younger, teenager, adult, I tried to really take on this role to say to help her see it because I just understood she is in a cycle of, um, suppressing her emotions, her feelings, not listening to her body, not living her truth. Like she was
Mhm.
completely, um, yeah, off her path, off her way, and just like every day shoving it down, like layer upon layer. And it was like for a long time my mission to help her and get her out. But then, as with everything, if it doesn't start with you, if you are not, first of all, acknowledge it, um, and then have the motivation and will to actually change something, no one can save you, right? It starts with you. You have to have this, oh, okay, something's wrong, but I am the one. I am the one who needs to heal, like start healing. Yes, get advice, get help, support, from people like you who really then work through this together because it's so hard when you're in the thick of it to
Mhm.
to notice, to understand. And like you said, you already were a coach. You already like had a lot of like awareness going on, but still someone from the outside dropped the sentence and then suddenly you're like, oh, this makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so talk a little bit, how are you helping women today?
Yeah. So the part that I really love is really helping women get to the root cause
Mm,
of their misalignment of how they're feeling. You know, most women, I'd say, don't, and we talked about this here moments ago, don't realize that feeling overwhelmed, stressed, burnt out, like they're spinning their wheels, all those feelings are signs that you're living in misalignment. Something is off. And
mhm,
I like to start off by really having people just review the 5 areas of life, main areas, right? Obviously, there's more underneath each, health, wealth, or money, their time, their relationships, and their career.
mhm,
There's subcategories under that, right? But if you can look at those and see where you fall, rate yourself, and when people do this, oftentimes they think like, "Oh my gosh, this stress and this overwhelm is coming because of my finances," right? But when they do this self-audit, this analysis, they really see like, "Oh my gosh, the bigger focus is my health." And because I haven't put focus on my health, now I don't have the energy. Now I don't have the mind power. Now I don't have all these things that my body needs to be able to handle my finances. And everything spills from one area into the other. So I love to help women get to the root cause of what it is that is causing them to feel the way they're feeling. Because when you can see it, when you can identify that what that root cause is, now you can take action. It's kind of
mhm.
like me, uh, going from one doctor to the next, and nobody knowing what was wrong, and you're fine. But when somebody tells me, no, this is the underlying issue,
Yeah,
then,
then you
okay,
can,
now I can tackle that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like a relief in itself, right? Where you then say, at least then now I know, and there's got to be a solution for it, right? There is the unknown is something that's really scary. And I know this because my youngest, he got diagnosed with a genetic defect when he was young. And in the beginning, it was because it's something so rare. Only 10,000 people in this planet have it.
Mm.
There's not a lot of data, not a lot of research, and not a lot of guidance. So there was really a time when I was like, oh, I felt so lost. I felt so, when you don't have the next step, when you don't really know who to trust, what to think, that is the worst. And
Hmm.
then it came all down, for me at least, it came all down to leaning back and tapping into my motherly instinct. And okay, so this might be not a flow because I just had to stop, but this is a mama's podcast. I also um, can openly say that my son just appeared, and because I am recording this in the middle of the night, I needed to talk. So, but I do remember I was saying that tapping into my intuition was then um, my savior and my way of dealing with that situation because a lot of things that the doctors would tell me did just not make sense. It might have been a solution for people and their children, their cases, but it wasn't feeling right for us. And when I saw how then I was acting against what was feeling right in the beginning because obviously I had no idea. And it has to do with the brain. So you're kind of like, you don't want to mess it up. So there was a lot of pressure. So these important people in front of me were telling me to do A, and I said, that doesn't make sense. I feel like B is a better solution. And yeah, it took a lot of strength and courage to say no. And then I cut the path that we were on and completely said, since this is not something they have experienced enough, and we were living in Thailand at that time, they were flying experts in because it was such a rare case, and I could see their excitement to deal with something new. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to be a guinea pig. I'm not taking my son through something just so they have more, room to play around. And so this comes all down to understanding your body, listening to your instincts, your intuition. If it's, related to your own health or your child's health, it's actually the same. How do you feel, or what do you feel like is the number one thing women are struggling today with when it comes to this, and why not why, but how can women more and more empower themselves and become this, because we are essentially the ones who are saving ourselves, right?
Yeah. Okay, that's such a good question because I think you nailed it at the beginning with how do we do this? You have to listen to your intuition.
Mm,
You have to just get silenced enough and get quiet enough to hear the voice within.
mm,
Just like you did for your son, I did it for my daughters,
mm,
right? Where they tell you one thing and you're like, no, I'm gonna do something else. Or, okay, that's your opinion, but that just means I'm going to change practitioner. That just means I'm going to go look somewhere else, right? Because I'm following that nudge inside. Same with my own health, right? I went to one doctor, nope, drink 5 pills a day or something ridiculous. And I'm
mm,
like, no. So it's not just taking the answer that you're
mm,
given up front. Because obviously, we put our trust in medical providers, right?
mm,
They're the experts. But trust yourself first
mm,
and get different opinions. That is the number one thing that I think women need to do because through this path of through this journey in life, women have forgotten who they were.
mm,
And that's one of the things I love to do. It's let's bring you back home, home to you.
mm,
Remember who you truly are deep inside.
mm,
That is my passion. That is what I love to guide women through. Let's figure out why you're feeling the way you do and help you go through that remembrance to come back to you. And that also means follow your intuition.
mm,
Don't ignore how you're feeling, whether it's sad, you know, if you're happy, live that moment. If you're sad, allow yourself to feel it, acknowledge it, but move past it. But a lot of people can't do that or don't know how to do that, right? But that's why there's so many people that are out there ready to help people. That's what I love to support people in.
mm.
But get quiet enough so you can begin to trust that inner voice and trust that intuition.
Let's talk about mom guilt for a second, because this is also something very much connected to what we've touched on. Um, and in the information you sent over before we jumped on here, you're also saying that you've lived through this, and yeah, what's your take on how to deal and handle mom guilt?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I didn't realize early on is that vibrational frequency that
Hmm.
guilt, shame, desire hold. And guilt has you vibrating at the lowest frequency ever, right? So, even though you're trying to move and elevate and advance in life, there's still unconsciously this frequency that is holding you down, right?
Mhm.
And I didn't realize how much shame and mom guilt I was carrying for not giving my son the level of attention he probably needed in those moments when he was younger. Like I said, we had three kids under two. And with all the medical needs that our daughters had, my husband and I tried to do the best that we could where one was focused on the girls, the other focused on our son. But inevitably, sometimes it resulted in, well, not inevitably, just it happened. They had more appointments, they had a lot going on that by default, there was more time spent towards them. Now, it was many years later, my son was a little older, and I'm reading a book, and it's called The Highly Sensitive Child. And he just skipped up and he's like, "Oh, what are you reading?" And he said, "Oh, I'm a sensitive child." And I said, "You are?" And then he just kind of went off his way to go play. That evening, when I was tucking him into bed, I asked him about it, right?
Mhm.
And I don't recall what he said in terms of sensitive or that part, because I don't think he could put really words to that. But what I do remember are the words that came after. And he said, "Why is it that you always notice others but not me?"
Mhm.
Whew, that had me just
Mhm.
in tears.
Oh, yeah.
And it carried weight, heavy weight in my heart for years after that. And I would tell myself, "Oh, I've worked through this. I've let this, I've worked through this." And then if I would bring up the conversation and if I found myself getting emotional, I knew there was still something holding on. There was still something there. And it wasn't until I realized that it was really, this shame
Mhm.
around it. Aside from the guilt, the shame, you know, that I felt for unconsciously doing that. Fast forward, and he's older now. He's 15. And this is, I'll be honest with you, within the last few months, 6, 7 months ago, I walked into his room one day and I said, "Honey, I want to talk to you." And he's looking at me crazy, like, am I getting in trouble? And I had this beautiful conversation with him. And I told him, "I apologize if I ever made you feel invisible
Mhm.
because there were so many things that we were doing. We were focused on your sisters. We were scared. We were nervous. You were a healthy boy. And so we spent more time taking them to appointments, making sure they were okay. And all those feelings, you know, would sometimes take us to a point where, we were just doing the best we could."
Mhm.
And he's so loving. And he always says, like, "Mom, I've never felt that way. You've brought this up before. I've never felt that way." And I said, "Look, I know what you told me." And he's like, "I don't remember that." And I said, "I won't forget it. But what I will tell you is that our brain has the ability to erase or block certain memories that are very painful. So if you don't remember, it's possible that your brain is trying to protect you. But all I'm saying is that we're all living a different part of our life now, and we can make this up. I am here to give you all the love and everything that if at any point you may not have received, we're here for it now." And I think that was when I was finally, released it and was able to move forward from that.
Beautiful, beautiful. And yeah, it's such a powerful tool you're giving your son, understanding early on in life, um, how the brain works and how we can, live through and also self-manage or self-heal traumas. Because a lot of people, I feel they go through their 20s and then they reach their 30s and then they're like have messed up lives and then they start looking into inner child wound healing and topics like that. But if you are a consciously raised child, I think this is really going to change his course and maybe, yeah, helps him to become this empowered person. Yes.
And I understand that he may not fully grasp all the things that I tell him, but he listens. And
Hmm.
I know he takes it in. He internalizes so much um, that I know these are things that he will remember.
Yes. And even if he doesn't like, if he's not at this age where he can everything like understand it fully, I truly believe that your subconscious can
Yes.
and will hold it there, and then it'll make sense. Like it will make sense when he's older. Yeah, wonderful. Okay. I do have to admit that the presence of my son in the background is making me feel now that it's time to wrap up this conversation. But I very much enjoyed this, and I do believe that whoever listens to this has some things to think about and to, really take away. Like if we sum up this conversation, it starts with us. There is most of the times, 99% of the times, you do have the power to change something. Maybe not to completely heal yourself all by yourself, but then there's people like you who can guide, who can advise, who've lived through it, and that enough gives hope, inspiration, and that sometimes is the one thing that our brain needs. And so if you're listening to this and you feel like you are in this still like in a position where you say, I do not even see it, what's wrong, but there is something wrong, something like rattled in you now, hearing, listening to us, then by all means do reach out. Criss is more than happy to like see and look. I assume that's also something that you enjoy, then helping people to understand and identify what's going on. And yeah, do you have any last words of wisdom or something you want to give?
I do.
Yes.
And it's probably not what I would typically say,
Hmm.
but because I want to lean into this moment and really acknowledge what you are doing and saying, you know what? The presence of my child is here. I am a mom, and that's what I need to attend to now, which so many women don't have the ability to do, right? It's like some people would be scooting their child aside. I'm working, I'm doing this. But no, to be able to just say, we're going to come to an end because this is the moment that we are in. I really would love people to lean into that and to give themselves permission to do that for themselves.
Mm. Yeah, this is what Sovereign Mamas is all about. And thank you for acknowledging that, for noticing. And yes, I loved our conversation. I truly do believe this is gold for a lot of people. And yes, thank you for understanding and again
Absolutely.
for being on the show. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.